Welcome to This Explainer. We're jumping right in today because we're diving deep into a seriously strategic blueprint straight from the experts over at LighTech. We're going to break down exactly how you can scale up your technical capabilities and build a phenomenal, high-performing team, all without getting completely bogged down by a slow, ridiculously expensive hiring process. Look, if you're a founder, a product owner, or a non-technical manager, you've almost certainly hit this exact wall. You've got this brilliant vision, right? But to pull it off, you need top-tier expertise, and you need it yesterday to actually get development moving. The problem? Traditional hiring takes months. Honestly, by the time you finally onboard somebody, the market might have completely moved on. Okay, so let's look at a real solution. IT outstaffing. Basically, this is a work model where you essentially lease specialists from a contractor, like LighTech. It's brilliant because it lets you plug thoroughly vetted middle and senior level experts directly into your workflow, literally from day one. And the absolute key here, the real game changer, is that you maintain complete 100% control over their tasks and your internal processes. So here is our architectural blueprint for today's explainer. First, the outstaffing advantage. Second, vision and planning. Third, the core builders. Fourth, quality and infrastructure. Fifth, managing the chaos. And finally, number 6, building your dream team. Section 1, the outstaffing advantage. Let's start with a foundational concept, just to clear up a super common misconception in the tech world. The operational difference between outstaffing and outsourcing is huge. With outsourcing, you're handing the keys over entirely to an external company. They manage the team, they manage the result. But outstaffing? That's about targeted strengthening. You keep the steering wheel. These leased experts integrate seamlessly into your existing team, and you retain total control over the daily priorities and processes. It's essentially a strategic extension of your own company. Section 2, vision and planning. Before a single line of code is ever written, you absolutely need the visionaries, the people who translate your business ideas into an actionable blueprint. This ensures your product actually brings real business value. So you've got business analysts. They study the market and figure out the why behind a feature. Then your system analysts take that and define the how, drafting technical specs and architecting the integrations. And finally, UX/UI designers analyze your target audience to build out the actual user scenarios. They're crafting interfaces that solve real problems, not just things that look pretty. The trick here is knowing exactly when to pull the trigger and bring these visionaries on board. If your company is gearing up for a digital transformation, but there's a totally unclear understanding of user needs, you need a business analyst. If you're building out highly complex logic tying together multiple external systems, a system analyst is vital. Or say your users are bouncing off a really confusing interface and you've got to increase retention, a UX/UI designer is your immediate priority. Section 3. The core builders. Once those blueprints are crystal clear, it's time to bring in the heavy machinery, the engineers who actually construct the digital product. Let's break down these core builders. Front-end developers are responsible for literally everything the user touches in the browser, typically using frameworks like React or Vue. Back-end developers, well, they build the unseen engine of your product, handling server logic, databases, APIs, using languages like Python or Java. And then you have your native mobile developers, who use Swift for iOS and Kotlin for Android to create high-performance apps with incredibly deep integration into the smartphone's actual features. Choosing who to bring in really comes down to diagnosing your specific pain point. If your app is constantly crashing because the server load is skyrocketing and the architecture is failing, you definitely don't need a designer. You need a back-end developer to fix the engine. But if you're launching a brand new app that requires, say, deep offline mode capabilities and absolutely flawless performance in the App Store, you're going to need native mobile developers. Now, here's a brilliant modern shortcut to keep in mind. If you need to launch a minimum viable product or get a new digital product out on both Apple and Android at the exact same time, a Flutter developer is very often your most efficient move. It maintains a single code base across both platforms, which dramatically optimizes your development costs and totally speeds up your time to market. Section 4, quality and infrastructure. So, building the product is really only half the battle. You also need the protectors and the plumbers to make sure the whole thing doesn't just collapse under its own weight. Let's meet the protectors. A QA, or quality assurance engineer, is basically your insurance policy against incredibly costly mistakes in production. They're hunting down bugs and testing edge cases long before a user ever sees them. On the flip side, your DevOps expert is the infrastructure plumber. They manage your cloud environments, think AWS or Google Cloud, and they configure automated deployment pipelines. They're the ones ensuring your flawless code actually stays online without any disastrous downtime. You'll want to bring these experts into your outstaffing team if your live environment is getting buggy after every single update. Honestly, that is a giant red flag that you desperately need QA. Alternatively, if your product is getting prepped for some major scaling, or maybe your cloud computing costs are just spiraling totally out of control and need serious optimization, bringing in a DevOps engineer will absolutely get your house in order.
Section 5. Managing the chaos.
Right, so with all this incredible technical talent assembled, you're going to need conductors to keep the orchestra playing in sync. It's super easy to confuse these two roles, but they serve very distinct, vital functions. Remember it like this. The product manager manages the product itself, the strategy, the metrics, testing hypotheses, and setting priorities based on hard data. The project manager, on the other hand, manages the people and the timeline. They run the meetings, track the deadlines, act as the single point of communication for the customer, and shut down the operational chaos so your developers can do what they do best, write code. Let's look at how this actually dictates your workflow. If your team is constantly blowing past deadlines because the project has grown beyond just one or two specialists, leasing a project manager is the immediate remedy to regain control. If, however, the team is working incredibly fast, but they're building the wrong things because there's no cohesive strategy or clear task priorities, that means you desperately need a product manager. Section 6. Building your dream team. Okay, let's translate all of this theory into a highly practical playbook based on exactly where your business is right now. This matrix, straight from LighTech, perfectly maps your current reality directly to the talent you need. Just have an idea? Connect a product manager and a designer. Have the designs but actually need a build? Bring in your front end, back end, and QA. Is your product live but highly unstable? You need DevOps and QA. And my personal favorite, if literally everything is currently on fire and there is zero coordination, immediately drop in a project manager to put out the flames. As we wrap up this explainer, you might be wondering about the actual friction of getting started with this model. What are the risks involved with leasing talent? Do you have to hire a whole massive team all at once? The answer is ultimate flexibility. There's zero minimum headcount. You could hire just one senior developer for a very specific task, or you can scale up to a full team of 10 people in a matter of days. The agency handles all the heavy lifting, the employment, the taxes, the legal support, while you keep total control over their daily tasks. And the absolute best part, every single specialist goes through a qualification check where you get to interview them. If for whatever reason they don't match your pace during the project, they are rapidly replaced. No headaches. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to consider today. In a tech landscape that moves at literal lightning speed, why in the world would you let an outdated, rigid hiring process stall your growth when you could be dynamically building a highly skilled team on demand? Think about exactly where your current project is bottlenecking right now and ask yourself, who do you need to outstaff today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.